In this video, we're going to be taking a look at ArcheAge Chronicles, which is an upcoming MMO RPG. It blends ARPG combat mechanics with the MMO formula, offering a fresh twist. However, there are some concerns surrounding the game, mainly because of the company behind it, which hasn't exactly had the best history with MMOs. But in this video, we'll dive into what ArcheAge Chronicles has to offer and what we think you can expect from it. ArcheAge Chronicles is the upcoming evolution of the ArcheAge franchise, originally revealed as ArcheAge 2 back in 2022. Developed by XL Games and published by Cacao Games, this title aims to bring a fresh take on the MMORPG genre with cutting-edge visuals powered by Unreal Engine 5. Slated for release in 2026, the game will launch on both PC and consoles. The game caught many people's attention by blending elements of an open-world MMORPG with the dynamic combat typically seen in action RPGs. Fans of the franchise and newcomers alike are keeping a close eye on how this installment reimagines its predecessor's ambitious systems. The first title was a sandbox MMORPG that gave players an incredible amount of freedom. You could get into quest lines, gather resources, craft gear, build houses, sail ships, or jump into factional and pirate-themed PvP. One of its features was the trade pack system, where players transported goods for rewards, and they would often deal with bandits, or they could even decide to become the bandits themselves. The game also has a housing system and massive sea battles against bosses. It was considered a very good game before its pay-to-win aspects kicked in and made the player base miserable, pretty much gutting what it had made. ArcheAge Chronicles plans to build on their core ideas with updates to housing, trade, and combat mechanics, while avoiding the things that players of the old game hated by coming up with a new method of monetization. It also is adding more customization options, letting players create towns, and opening up even more possibilities for sandbox gameplay. One thing that does make the title a bit more promising is how the major figure behind this project is Jake Song, a veteran MMORPG developer, best known for his work on Lineage, one of the most well-known online games in South Korea. Lineage was successful enough to start a franchise that ultimately led to the release of its latest installment, Throne and Liberty, just earlier this year. ArcheAge Chronicles picks up 50 years after the events of the original game, where it takes players to the enigmatic lands of Aurora, the game's main setting. Aurora is the original homeland of humans, elves, and dwarves. The story begins with an airship crash that leaves you, a member of a prominent trading company, stranded and determined to rebuild. It looks like the story shifts away from the epic world-saving conflicts of its predecessor, and the narrative seemingly takes a more character-focused approach, focusing more on the lives of the settlers and their struggles to thrive through exploration, trade, and survival. Aurora itself is a huge untamed region that is full of ancient ruins, thriving trade hubs, and perilous territories. The landscape is a mix of magic-infused vistas, sprawling trade routes, and resource-rich zones, and they each have their own unique challenges and opportunities. Whether it be investigating the mystery behind the airship crash, finding some lost artifacts, or navigating the complex political systems of warring factions, players are supposedly encouraged to choose their own path and do things at their own pace. It also looks like exploration will take center stage here, with the world evolving dynamically in response to player actions, which does make your decisions feel more impactful, which is definitely something that is sorely needed in MMORPGs. It does seem like your choices can have a bigger impact, shaping local economies, building up towns, and even shifting faction power. The game mixes your own journey with community-driven storytelling, which makes the world feel more connected and alive. Combat in ArcheAge Chronicles takes a bold step away from the tab targeting system of the original game. It is now embracing a dynamic action RPG style that should feel more skill-driven. Players will now have to rely on real-time dodging, blocking, and parrying. The game also offers a variety of combat styles, including melee, ranged, and magic, each with its own mechanics like combos, elemental attacks, and movement-based abilities such as dashing and rolling. It looks like they're going for something that's fast-paced but still has some depth, so it's not just button mashing. It sounds promising on paper, but obviously the real test is going to be when people get their hands on it to see if it actually plays as well as it looks in trailers. But from the looks of it, ArcheAge Chronicles combat seems closer to a slasher than traditional MMORPG mechanics. The game brings back a lot of classic features fans loved in the original game, however, but with some nice updates. The trade pack system is back, letting players transport goods for profit. The risk of PvP is still a big part of the fun, especially with more valuable trade routes that increase the chances of running into other players. This time, the system adapts based on player activity, changing up trade routes and prices, so there's something always that you can plan for. Naval combat is another returning mechanic, with large-scale ocean battles and boss fights like hunting the Kraken making a comeback. There's a lot more freedom this time around too, with even better ship customization and more depth to the maritime mechanics, so you can really make the most of your time at sea, whether you're fighting or just exploring. Housing and land ownership are getting some improvements as well. Instead of having to compete for open world plots, Chronicles switches to instance zones, giving players more freedom to customize their homes without worrying about running out of space. I think it's a nice change that should make housing more accessible and creative at the same time. Faction and guild systems will still be important to the game, with a big focus on faction PvP and guild versus guild battles. New structured PvP modes include large-scale 40-player arenas, and Battleground should add plenty of PvP gameplay. Plus, Chronicles is keeping things fresh with PvE content like the Crimson Rift and huge world bosses, all updated with new mechanics to keep things challenging. There's a lot to look forward to for both PvE and PvP MMO fans. As for the new mechanics they will introduce, there are some great new features that really build on the sandbox experience. Players can now supposedly create entire towns, opening up opportunities for community projects and settlements that change based on player actions. The crime system has also reportedly been updated, with piracy and banditry still offering some risk, but now it's balanced so non-PvP players won't be too affected. Crafting and gathering have apparently been made easier and deeper, so you can craft everything from weapons and armor to ships and trade goods. Farming also seems to feel more flexible, whether you're working alone or with others. The housing system has expanded too, offering more customization for both the inside and outside of your home, and now there's group housing and shared community spaces. The trading system is another addition where routes adapt to player behavior. This means the most profitable trade routes can shift and influence PvP hotspots, adding more things to consider for both merchants and bandits alike. All of these changes are supposedly to make the world feel more dynamic and give players plenty of ways to experience the sandbox aspect of the title. The development of ArcheAge Chronicles is considered another chapter for XL Games and its co-founder Jake Song. He is most well known in his field as the father of Lineage because of his contribution to the title. He recently stepped down as CEO of XL Games to focus fully on game development. His stepping down was officially made effective on July 31st, and this decision was announced later, with Song assuring the team that the company's leadership would remain steady under CEO Kwan Ho Choi. With a legacy that includes co-founding Nexon and creating landmark MMO ARPGs like the Kingdom of the Winds and Lineage, Song's hands-on involvement in ArcheAge Chronicles has understandably set some very high expectations. Originally revealed in 2022 as ArcheAge 2, the game was rebranded as ArcheAge Chronicles and faced multiple delays. It was supposed to release in 2024, and then it was moved to 2025. But then, after its closed beta test, it was moved yet again to 2026. The reason behind the delay was that they said they wanted to polish the game first. The game was built using the Unreal Engine 5, and it promises stunning visuals and deeply immersive gameplay, though one of the things that come with Unreal Engine 5 is how it requires you to have a very good gaming system to play it well. And it seems that this is also the case here. Its system requirements such as an RTX 2070 Super and 32GB of RAM have sparked accessibility concerns for players who have lower spec gaming setups. Developers are reportedly working on optimizing performance to make the game more accessible, but the bar for quality is set high, and with Unreal Engine 5, that will be a really tall order. The game will supposedly follow a buy-to-play model with optional cosmetic microtransactions and a potential premium subscription, showing that they have made some effort to avoid the monetization pitfalls that the original title suffered from. ArcheAge Chronicles will now have to carry the weight of the franchise's complicated history. The original ArcheAge was celebrated for its innovative sandbox systems and epic large-scale raids, but it stumbled due to poor monetization practices and mismanagement. Despite multiple re-releases for the purpose of salvaging its reputation, predatory cash shops and a shift towards theme park MMO mechanics alienated much of its player base. Fans now hope that Chronicles will keep the best aspects of the original, such as open-world bosses and massive raids, while introducing modern features like 10-player group synergy and refining combat mechanics. A major point of concern, though, is the role of Kakao Games as the publisher. Their track record with monetization and titles like Black Desert Online and the original ArcheAge has left a huge chunk of the player base cautious, and rightfully so. Broken promises and pay-to-win controversies loom large over their involvement. However, with updates planned through 2025 and an extended development timeline, XL Games has a chance to address these concerns, refine the game's mechanics, and make sure ArcheAge Chronicles delivers a balanced MMORPG experience that lives up to its potential. Final thoughts. I personally think ArcheAge Chronicles has the potential to avoid the monetization issues that plagued the original game, especially since the developers have already committed to a microtransaction model focused solely on cosmetics. What will really determine its success, though, is whether the team can learn from their past mistakes. If the game can deliver on the exciting combat we've seen in trailers and stick to fair monetization, it could be a strong contender in the MMO space and maybe even give games like New World Aeternum and Throne and Liberty a run for their money. With Jake Song's track record of creating MMO experiences, there's definitely room for cautious optimism. Ultimately, though, only time will tell if they can truly follow through on these promises. So that wraps up our video on ArcheAge Chronicles. Are you guys keeping an eye on this one? Did you play the original ArcheAge game? What do you make of the things that you're seeing in this video and what you're hearing? Is it something you're going to look out for? Let me know in the comments below. Bye.